don't have my mouth full. It's fine.
This is gonna be a dinner and a show tonight.
Yeah, that's 100% where it's at for me this week. It's 100% dinner and a show because I did not eat. Dinner took a little long. Then it wasn't salty enough. Now it's too salty.
Oh
There's,
no.
I got Cuban black beans and rice, but like the saddest way. Beans aren't quite done. Rice is too done. This was not a win for me.
I opted for pesto Alfredo.
Hey.
So
Okay, pesto Alfredo is great. Oh, look at Alyssa trying to get him first. How you guys doing tonight? Everybody okay? It was a rough week. I'm a little raw, so you're gonna get that kind of like ranty, weepy Susan this week. By the way, I just want to state for the record, I'm not the one trolling right now. So do with that what you will. I won't take responsibility.
That was the big guy upstairs.
Yeah. The big guy upstairs. Is that what you just said? Anyway. Hello, you guys. Slightly less than okay, Emily. That's real. Eating Fritos before RFK Jr. takes away my junk food. Fair. That's so valid. So valid. Yeah. Worried about my Takis, to be honest. So,
hot Cheetos, though.
Oh, Jesus. You do not want to know what that would be. Oh my God. I can't even tell you. I know I make a lot of stuff in ChatGPT, but the unhinged questions that are in there would make you worry for me. Everything's fine and I'm a stable person. All right. So people are trickling in because I didn't announce this until an hour before, because that's what my week was.
The 11th hour.
Emily, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, going to the doctor and eating all the foods before you lose everything. I had an IEP meeting before the Department of Education gets defunded. So it was a very big week. We had what? The PRT.
PRT?
Yeah. And if you've not been following along with Tikkun's mismanagement of every part of this, the ones who had oil in their lamps. I need more oil in my lamp. Tikkun, they were the commissioners of the report. And as part of that, after the Firefly report was released, Dan Juster, he's one of the founders of Tikkun, according to Wikipedia. So if that's not true, someone should check him. But yeah, one of the founders of Tikkun, he convened a pastoral response team that is purportedly a third party. However, it is essentially an extension of their values. The pastors on it were selected by Dan Juster. He wrote a book called Due Process. Right on. The psychological experts, I'm using that term because it's there, not because I believe that they're psychological experts. Those were hand selected by Dan Juster. One is a retired psychologist whose work focuses heavily on mandalas, as in like the coloring books. I mean, I think Baby She had people draw them too. Not sure. Possibly walk them, but not entirely relevant to Clergy sexual abuse. Jessica. A biblical counselor, which is not a licensed thing. And then I think there was a therapist who runs like an actual ministry. But she, like, licensed, and everyone in her therapy group is licensed. So that one was a little more, I think, reasonable. But the rest, it's all selected by Tikkun. And so it's not a third party, and Dan very much was part of that process. So that came out. Then I think I wasn't going to jump into that right away, and then I just jumped into it. Then we have BS from Gate City Church that we will read through. Little Billy Humphrey over at, that's the Atlanta City House Prayer. Sorry. Dan Jester's the best-selling author and savior of charismatic Christianity through his celebrated book, Due Process, which informs the ministries how to avoid being blasted on social media, which he clearly has not done.
Best-selling, right?
Yeah. They actually dropped a link. I kid you not. The day that the corrected report released, they were like repping it on their Instagram. So I don't want to hear one word about how that wasn't part of the pastoral response team. Won't someone think of the ministries? So I'm actually going to poll the audience. The other thing we have that I wanted to bring up is a really brave survivor came forward. And I want to validate her. I'm not going to read her story. It's a really, it's a hard story to read. And I want to honor that by reading her. It was in response to Ellen Hood's apology. And so I may start there if you guys are down, unless you guys want to start with the PRT. So just like shoot me a line in the chat and let me know the vibes. If that's going too deep, too fast, let me know. But I'm not going to read any of the abuse. I want to read her response to Alan and honor that response. And then if you guys want to go and read it, we can drop the link. But kind of like a trigger warning. It is an intense story that might be really hard. So maybe figure out where you're at, Yeah. And so that's the other thing that we're going to hit. And then anything else you guys want to hit, also just drop that in the chat. So I'm going to give people a second. There it is. Yeah, they really did that. They really thought that soon in Portuguese. And I just want to take a moment. It's coming out soon in Portuguese. And what kills me about that is that there are Brazilian Tikkun communities, former members, who are coming out and talking about the spiritual abuse that happened in those communities. And Tikkun Global is claiming we had nothing to do with that. We have nothing to do with that group. We have no authority over them, but they're sure releasing Due Process in Portuguese. So, okay. Because I don't have. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, that was major side eye, like shaking my head.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm done with my dinner now. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and I guess I will start with that. So again, yes, please do share the link to Pedro's blog. And that's something I want to call a little more attention to in the next couple of weeks. Because it touches on, I don't know, just like, right, like the nature of like how far I have spread. Because I first connected with Pedro a year ago, and he said that seeing all of us speak out on social media gave him hope and realized that he could have a voice for the people he was seeing victimized. And I did not know until last week that it was a Tikkun community, which is wild to me. Tikkun, Tikkun. Someone tells me every week what it is, and every week I mildly intentionally forget.
Feels right to me.
I don't want to get it right. Ooh, this is a good one. I would really like to have a conversation about how victims of people who are not high up don't seem as heard or valued. I feel like you still have to be an inner circle person to get support, and it makes me mad. All right. Tikkun. Okay, Tikkun. Where do I put the emphasis, Nicole?
Yeah, we need some.
Is it like Tikkun or is it like Tikkun? Every time I need to know. You know what? From there, actually, Wendy, come jump on with us.
Yeah,
we talked about this. Yeah, where are you? Wendy is actually one of our moderators, and I was going to have her on here, and then I dropped the ball because I'm the worst person. I'm going to message her a link real quick. Or maybe someone can.
Big guy upstairs.
Yeah, maybe big guy. So, okay, Tikkun. Okay. There we go. ChatGPT, could you please message Wendy? Thank you. I've really gotten into AI. So that said, I want to take a minute, bring myself back down, to just honor that survivor. And I want to say this is someone that a lot of people in the community know. And I want us to honor too the way she chose to do it publicly, which was to use the pseudonym Bex. And then I want to remind everybody just really gently, we can talk around our own feelings that it brings up. I'm not going to go into details, and I don't want us to ask questions or about the actual abuse. We're just going to honor the gift of her story and what she said.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the rest of my guidelines, but I want to stay away from explicit in the chat, explicit like descriptions or anything surrounding that. And then I want to validate too. I know people who are friends with her. I know who she is. She is a real person, and this is a real story. And I believe her. And I want her to have community backing. Because this is a big, huge, brave thing to do. So that said, there's just a couple parts of it that I want to highlight to you guys because her words were really powerful. And it does bring up some difficult feelings because I think Alan, for a lot of us, has been someone who we have at least seen show grief. And there's a range of responses to having him show grief. But I think all of them are valid. But I think that's what makes it hard. Mm-hmm. Is that it's not straightforward. It's not like Dave Slyker. And she wrote this in response to his apology. And I think it just sums a lot up. So I'm gonna put it on screen. It's not the whole story. Just this last
bit. I was gonna say too, before we get into this, I think that being able to have these dialogues is really healthy. And it shouldn't scare anybody away. It's like when you have it's like this for any relationship, right? Whether it's like a parent, a friend, family member, when you have these complicated issues, right? When you love each other, but there's also friction. There's something that's standing in the way of connection. And to be able to have those conversations of saying like, hey, like that really hurt me. or that really disappointed me. And being able to have that healthy conversation openly without fear of retaliation, and then the other person being able to receive that in a healthy way of like, okay, like I hear you, that,
Yeah.
and I'm so sorry about that. It's a really important part of healing, of you know, just dialoguing. Gosh, my brain just lost it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are afraid of, well, we can't keep this, picking apart and analyzing things. But if we really take a step back and say, you know what, like, I think Alan is in a place where he's able to receive this feedback, this type of feedback. And because he does have, I would like to believe he does have a genuine heart about it. And so I don't see anything wrong with having these dialogues of like, hey, I'm so glad that you stood up and did this thing, but also there's this over here too that
Yeah.
needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that's so true. Wendy, thank you. So glad
Hi,
you're here.
hi, Wendy.
nice to
Um,
see you.
we love Wendy. I'm just gonna say it. All right. I'm gonna read this and then we're just gonna talk. So I'm gonna start a little in the middle. But I love this line. She's described the relationship and what happened and how badly it was handled. And we're picking up from there. The relationship went on, twisted by the fear and subordination ingrained in me by your theology of exacting purity for godly women and endless moral flexibility for men after God's own heart. So that one
Yeah,
is like, well, shit.
yeah,
You
You
can say
know,
it's okay.
yeah.
like, like, girl.
Let's.
Um,
I think we can pause on that for a minute.
I mean, we could really just spend the rest of the night on that.
Yeah,
And I want just like the outrage in that.
Yeah.
It's so visceral, like shit. And that is exactly it. Endless moral flexibility for men after God's own heart. And
Yeah.
and if you read the rest of the story, and again, I'm not going to go into detail, but a really primary part of it was the way that she was treated when they found out what was going on with her. And they didn't ask any questions. There was no what's going on. Are you okay? There was, we're going to kick you out. And her. And when have you seen men who were seeking the Lord get kicked out? As long as they were like, oh, I'm sorry. I just love God, but oops. I was bored.
I just if you are seeking the Lord, you're not going to do that.
There it is.
Like, honestly, because and it's even more difficult for me now because I work in consent education for young people. So part of my job is going into school and talking about consent within relationships, especially as it relates to your body. And all the reasons why under the law consent hasn't taken place. And, coercion is one of them, and the power imbalance and all these things that we're talking about all the time. And just it infuriates me, the level, like she said, the level of purity that I felt as women we were expected, not just to keep ourselves pure, but somehow we're responsible to keep all the other men pure.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the problem, is that I have no control over what someone else thinks, over what someone else does, over how someone else feels. And yet we're all selling out of Target of the long singlets to make sure that, everything's covered in case you bend over in prayer and your skin is showing, and somehow
I just had a memory.
Dressing for the prayer room and making sure, like,
Can we all just talk about who among you did not buy the wife beaters, the men's wife beaters? Do you remember that, you guys?
Who among you have not, before you left the house, put your arms up? Make sure. Let's be honest. I am a firm believer in dressing appropriately for whatever your setting you are in. I think beach clothes are appropriate for the beach, and church clothes are appropriate for church, and work clothes are, I'm all about appropriate. However, like
that.
Yeah.
And how coercive is that? Let's talk about how coercive that is.
It was always.
I remember the first time that a man said to me, this is a positive story. No one's going to get triggered. But the first time a man said to me, someone had made a comment, and he didn't even say it to me. He said it in front of me. But someone had made a comment about how someone else's wife was dressed. And his response was, why is it her responsibility to keep you pure? And I was like, oh, fuck.
Wow.
It was like, if you can't be in a space, it is summer and it is hot, and if you're not capable of being in a church where a woman's wearing a sleeveless shirt and shorts, you probably have some deeper issues. And I was like, well, and it was so like I was like, what just happened?
One of the worst things I ever had to do when I was a Fire in the Night call leader, and this was when I was like in Fire in the Night and also a call leader and all the things, and I had this other male call leader come up to me and be like, this girl is wearing a bikini in the Hern Hut.
Oh my God, in the Hern Hut pool. Yes.
In the Hern Hut pool. And all us guys are all talking about how difficult it is because she's wearing the bikini. And I'm just like, and she knows what she's doing.
Oh my God.
God.
Like, he was so riled up about it. And I was like, well, yeah, I get the rules. I mean, I can remind her, like, hey, you're supposed to have a one piece on the pool. So I had to go and be like, hey, I'm supposed to wear a one piece at the pool. And she's like, if they're struggling with people being in bikinis, then why are they at the pool? And I'm like,
yeah, that's a you problem. Don't come to church. I don't want you.
Yeah. And why are all these men discussing their stumbling over a particular woman in and of themselves also sounds a bit creepy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
We like
very many thoughts. Yeah.
And I think for me it's that bigger picture of, even I've been thinking about this a bit over the last year and whatever since the stories have come out, that it does seem like, yeah, of course yoga pants were not allowed at T-Hop because, butts. Although you can wear skinny jeans, so I don't quite know what the difference.
Right.
There were some double standards. I'm not going to get super explicit, but I do want to say, like, it's not like women don't have eyes. All right, like, we just don't feel entitled, and we don't feel like it's your job to keep us from, you guys running off in the streets with your shirts off. Like, you think we do? We just have minds.
We might have a natural appreciation for a six-pack, but I'm not going to go and be like, you need to put your shirt back on now.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Anyway, what I've noticed, and I feel like it stems from this thing to do with women, is that even now, women's voices are heard when they're victims. And that's still about it. Like, or you're a wife of someone who's in the inner circle.
Yeah.
other than those two things, like even, and I appreciate a lot of the people who are trying to expose things and whatever, but they're not, why are they not bringing female theologians in? Why are they not bringing female counselors and psychologists? Like, why is the female voice still being honestly silenced?
Yep.
Okay.
Like, I can talk theologies just as much as anyone else, and or actually pretty much every person in this chat, whether you're Christian or not, can still throw out all the Bible verses. Like, we were all trained well, we all did our Bible studies, and I think this, you know, Beck's just been so brave, and she's actually she is highlighting a abusive, a misogynistic problem that was at the foundation of IHOP that
Yes.
men don't like talking about. Sorry to the men who are on here. I don't like being super gendered, but we're talking about misogyny.
I think the men who are on here typically can handle. There are men who are coming into a open spaces episode led by 3 women. So I think
there you go. Well done.
I'm just I gotta take a moment here with this. ChatGPT is getting wild. Let me tell you right now. This is not my ChatGPT history. Just want to send that disclaimer. All right. I want to continue that conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to continue to center her voice real quick. So I'm just gonna read it. I bore his shame and mine. And again, I don't know if I need to like snap or like what the appropriate response is, but like, fuck yeah, I bore his shame and mine. Yeah. Yes, that one. Without being able to say anything to anyone ever, or I would be sent away. I started drinking vodka in my energy drink as I walked into Excellencies of Christ 3. This would have never happened without the International House of Prayer University. The International House of Prayer University would have never happened without you, Alan.
Wow.
You have no idea the scars I still carry because I went to your school. Luckily, I left. Luckily, I left the man too. Luckily, I've built a life entirely divested from the evangelical world. My purpose and happiness no longer dependent on the comings and goings of hysterical men behind pulpits saying things they don't intend to be held accountable for. This is like fucking like a treaty. Like this is our treatise on like just like get it, girl. But if there was ever a time to open my mouth, and so I want to pause because I want to say this. There is a lot of talk. Victims just want attention. Victims just want this. Just some blah, 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 blah. Oh, you know, she's bitter. She's fucking fine. She is fine. She is
better than she's ever been.
Hey.
Yeah.
She has a life and she did not have to come back.
Yep.
Her purpose and happiness are no longer dependent on the comings and goings of hysterical men behind pulpits saying things they don't intend to be held accountable for. And just for reference, the reason that hits so hard, if you know this story, is that Alan is one of the ones who picked her out of a crowd. So yes, she had other like family involvement with I Have KC. She talks about that a little bit, but like she wasn't unfamiliar with it, right? Obviously we were all in these spaces. Obviously there was a lot that led to all of us coming, but there is something very honest about the fact that at some point, many of us were singled out by someone on a stage who said we had destiny. Like, I was a Misty. Janelle, I don't know what you were. You know, maybe you were like an Anna or a Deborah or like whatever the hell. You know, I don't know. Wendy, I don't know what you were. If you had a call to the nations.
Mother of me.
Everyone shout out your calling real quick.
Yeah, I think I was mainly
that in the chat.
Hannah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna receive all this tenfold stuff because I left my own country for Jesus.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So I got that quite a bit.
Yeah. I was called to save nations.
Yeah. Oh, hey, me too.
And this
5.
one was just hidden. Which is,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
come on
Yeah.
now.
In the
Actually,
secret place.
They're like, I don't know what your name is, so
Yeah. Yeah. God's called you to the secret
actually
place.
didn't know you were here till just now, and so you're hidden. Like what? Abraham, mother of many. Okay, so continuing. If there was ever a time to open my mouth, it's when people like you, like Dwayne Roberts, try to behave as if scapegoating Mike Bickle is enough to acquit you all of your hand of creating, sculpting, and overseeing the monster that ravaged my life, and that so many others. You don't get to build the gas chamber and expect a pass, much less a pat on the back for pointing out where they are. A little yeast leavens the whole bread, and you came from the same batch.
Whoa.
You, Bickle, Roberts, Hunley, and everyone else, you did this together. And I think that's so real. Here's another one. Shumbolt singled me out to move to KC and enter into the throne room. Yeah. So many of us were singled out by men in pulpits, hysterical men in pulpits, saying things they didn't intend to be held accountable for. And I think that has been the pain of this, has been choosing to link arms again. Like, I don't think it was lost on any of us that we were linking arms again with those same people for a bigger mission.
Yeah.
And I think we all had
reservations.
Yeah, reservations. And I think I do think we had a realistic understanding of what we were choosing to set down. Because I believed that, Mike's victims deserved an investigation, and I believed that everyone else deserved the choice to participate or not. I think we all knew that it was going to be skewed in some way. And, oh man, Victoria's just spitting.
Yeah.
Here. God. We're going to bring that one up later. But I think that, so we knew that, and then we did it anyway, knowing it wasn't going to be perfect. And it was so much less perfect, so much less okay than we hoped. And that's okay. It is what it is. But then to not have any kind of deep recognition publicly that, yeah, this is our fault. This was our fault too. I've heard a lot of like, we are victims, and I'm not putting that on any one member. I want to say that I want to differentiate, because I don't think it's helpful that the AG is this sort of nebulous, all in one group. There's a difference between my frustrations with, Ellen versus Dwayne in here.
Yeah.
But I do have frustrations with both. And that's hard.
Yeah. I think it's the lack of acknowledgement, I feel, that you are absolutely part of the problem. And that whether you are aware of it or not, you helped Mike. And a lack of acknowledgement of still some of the theology. No one has mentioned the treatment of women still.
Yeah.
No one has mentioned the hierarchy that occurred and just how damaging that was. And I think that's where the comment I made before is just coming out of this place of knowing that there are so many victims that even when they were at IHOP or at the other organizations that kind of overflowed from IHOP, and they were doing brave things, and they were going and they were talking to leaders, and they were told, "We're dealing with it."
Mhm.
And it wasn't dealt with, and
Yeah.
that's such an injustice, and that hasn't really been acknowledged, like, at all. And, we all understand how difficult deconstructing and detangling and whatever it is we all want to call it,
Yeah.
coming to terms with your past is really hard, and admitting that a narcissist convinced you of things is really difficult. Like, it's
Yeah.
this thing I always find strange about people talking about negatively about victims just wanting attention. I'm like, I just haven't met any actual victims that want to admit that they're a victim.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
It's not a fun thing to do. It's
not a fun thing to say, or
it
I'm a strong, independent, I'm all these things. And yet I was victimized, I was abused, and I have to carry those two things at the same time.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult place to even admit to yourself and work through. And so then when you finally speak up and you have people questioning you, it's just wrong. Can we just say it's wrong to treat people like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone said, I think the women in the AG are just starting to wake up to the sexism and their own places of privilege.
Yeah.
And I think that, that is a really good point, because the closer you are to the inner circle, you do have a place of privilege.
Yeah.
And yes, Mike was a monster, and I'm glad that people are saying that. There are a lot of other people, men and women, who, experienced abuse by names we won't recognize, and that doesn't mean that their trauma is any more or less than what other people have gone through. All right, I'll stop and fold my towels.
I need to start bringing my laundry out here because that's brilliant. Every time we're doing this, Wendy does our laundry because she is a more capable person than me. And
No.
I need to start learning. This is a really great observation, Jen, and I would love to hear you expand on this more. Coalitions are fragile things. In the wake of the report and the PRT and the absence of justice, it feels like the former leaders are the only ones we can reach, who may be willing to be reached. And that's true. And I don't know which ones. I'm not going to speak to which ones I think aren't, because I think the part of it is when they're this big leadership blob,
Yeah.
it can even be hard to know what you want from them. Almost, what do you what response, what I might, I don't know exactly how to say it, so I'm going to set it aside, but here's a great comment. It's confusing to finally admit being a survivor and as having been thriving in only certain categories. Yeah. There are parts of my life that on paper look really good, and there are parts of my life that are so unraveled that I don't know how to put them back together yet. Because just taking it in is overwhelming enough that I don't know where to begin, and I don't have a map for that, because my map was Jesus saves you, and I think Janelle, I was talking to you about this. You know, you can go to therapy, and I think therapy is wonderful, and I think it's extremely helpful. And I think that also what I found is that it hasn't been able to speak to some of the areas of it's not quite grief, because there is grief. The areas where I'm stuck, because there's so much that they would have to really understand to know why I'm stuck, and the things that get me unstuck. I need to see someone do it, actually, who is stuck in the same way that I am. I don't know if that makes sense, but when I see someone who knows work through it, because some of it is meaning making, right?
Yeah.
And that one's really hard. I've not ever been to a therapist that can tell you how to make meaning out of your life. We can talk around it. Like, right, we can be like, oh, like our close relationships are meaningful. And like sometimes I'm like, but are they? Like some of mine are. Some of mine suck. Some of them I wish weren't close. They could be farther from me. They exist though. You know, or it's just these big questions that I had these answers for that I don't anymore. And now I'm really stuck because I don't just have to deal with the fact that I don't have the answer. I have to deal with the grief, like the loss of what I thought was meaning in that area too. And I have to grieve it and then figure out how to navigate it and then figure out how to teach my children it when I don't know what I'm teaching. And you know, and then grieve that and be like, fuck, am I fucking you up? And that's really hard. This is good. Hearing other stories have helped me so much to understand my own. Yeah. And that's a piece you can't do in therapy, which is, and I'm not knocking therapy. I want to be really clear on that.
Therapy is good, guys.
Therapy is really good, and you should go get therapy.
Please.
But yeah, I think that it's
not the only avenue of healing. Also, I think is important to recognize. Healing comes in various spaces and methods, and so this is something, you know, we've all recognized in our own various experiences, right? Where we try to go to therapy. And we come up against a lot of therapists that are like, well, like, this is a totally different field than what they're used to seeing, you know, when somebody walks in the door with their problems. And so, you know, I know for myself, you know, I've had therapists completely like flabbergasted and not knowing where to take the conversation after, you know, I finally say like, yeah, like this is what happened to me. And, you know, I'm 8 years out now, I think. And I am still struggling to figure out how to unpack this, how to define, you know, like what you said, Susan, meaning and identity and like all of the things. It's so much bigger than like a singular experience. You know, it's a community experience, and it's something that takes over your entire identity, how you navigate life, how you navigate trauma, and so trying to find a way forward in all of that mess is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So it's a huge gap from what I've seen from a lot of people's experiences. There's a huge gap in therapy and understanding this experience and what it means to live after and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see some changes in that. And I think there's a lot of power in in us coming together in spaces like these, where we're not experts, we're not, and I doubt there are many experts in this world in this field particularly, but
community recovery post cult is like, you've got like Steve, his son, and he's not even community, he's individual. How does a community, I don't know that there's a framework. I think that's really, people leave cults individually often. I think we've got Nexium,
and I feel like because there are AA groups that are for the children of alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that sort of group therapy, I have I know someone who goes and it's been amazing for her to understand her childhood and to understand, so much of her processing of, when you live with one of your parents having an addiction.
Yeah.
And she's found, and a lot of it is listening to the other stories, validating your experience, and seeing your story in someone else's story. And I think for me, I just feel really fortunate that when my marriage was falling apart, the counselor I started seeing was, she was a Christian, which was important to me. And even at the time, she was kind of like, well, that you could separate if you wanted to. And I was like, what? I progressed in that. But she also had experience with spiritual abuse. And so when I look back, I'm like, a lot of the work we were doing wasn't just around a marriage and different things. It was also the impact that a lot of this theology around women and marriage and expectations, how that had impacted me. So I actually ended up unpacking a lot of that that wasn't seen. But looking at Nicole's comment earlier about being single, obviously I've been single for like 6 years or something. And I do definitely identify with the difficulty of trying to process this without having your person, and in my situation, of course, I still have my kids, so I have to keep things going for them at different times. But, just not having someone that whenever something comes up, you can be like, oh, this today. And that person knows, oh, you read an article and I understand why that article will impact your day and how you're feeling. I mean, all those things. It's a pretty lonely place to be, navigating what we're all navigating. And I think for me, at least, being single, it's like, whoa, I'm even extra alone. And then if you're coming from the position of, oh, I'm extra alone because this cultish organization told me that I was just going to be completely satisfied in Jesus. It's like, oh,
yeah,
it's a thing.
I feel some of that loneliness. Like, so I met my wife about 5 years after I left IHOP, and because she grew up in Grandview and she knew the outsider's perspective, right, of the organization, how it took over the community and the influence that it had, and so that was as much that she knew about it. And she didn't, her family wasn't overtly religious, and so it's been really difficult for her to understand like the complexities of this, and just having those conversations of like why this is so hard for me to just walk away from and not look back at, and not have these major cycles of grief, and it's it's hard sometimes. And so, and that was something that I didn't really anticipate, because you know, when we had met and started dating, I was way, separated from the church and from the organization. And so I never thought that there would be these conversations that would be happening and this disconnect. But then as time went on, and then all of the stuff started like coming back up again, right? With Mike Bickle getting exposed, and the reports and everything, and then trying, I'm over here like losing it on the floor. And my wife's like, whoa, like what's going on here? And she tries her best, she really does. But I mean, it's just like anyone that who hasn't, been through it and lived in this environment, and suffered the consequences of it. And
or have the like, oh well, I would have never. Why did you believe that? I can't believe, like, why, I would never listen to that particular teaching. And it's like, thank you for making me feel stupid. And completely invalidating my experience. You go on my not safe person list now.
Yeah, so that right there, Wendy, has been a huge, I think it has been a little bit healing for me to have all of you guys and be out publicly saying I was in a cult. Because there's so much shame in I was fooled. I don't have a college education because I joined a cult. That no, in my case, like I kind of knew. I mean, I think probably we all had some kind of knowing. I'm not gonna like speak for everyone, but I think, I think all of us have described moments where we were like, ooh, and then, shut that down. And there's so much there, but like the shame of it, I didn't want anybody to know. And every time I've been public, like this is live streamed and my name, my name is out there. And people can see that I'm live streaming this speak. Like old neighbors are like, oh, I saw your live stream. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. And it was really weird at the beginning, but there's been this piece of me that has been able to step out past the shame into being a whole person who, yes, has had like for me, there was a lot of like, if I am open about this thing that I was a part of and that I experienced, and the brokenness that resulted, the grief and the dysfunction and trauma and all kinds of things, people are going to see me as just that. And I feel the same about like sexual trauma. Like, like if people see me there, I'm going to be just a victim. The broken Susan. I remember dealing with that from a very, very young age, because my abuse happened at a young age. And like, there was this part of me that was like, I don't want to be broken. I don't want to be seen as broken. I understand why people say to themselves, I want to, I want to be called a survivor, not a victim. And it's an identity statement. And I've discovered recently that there's something so healing about unapologetically saying, I was a victim. I was in a cult. It did cost me deeply. And you should fucking listen to me. Because I am who I am because of it, and not all of that is bad. Some of it is very bad. I'm not silver lining this shit. I'm not saying, God turns all things for the good. No, absolutely not. Some things are just awful, and wrong and damaging. And I am proud of who I am. And I am so proud of us. I'm so proud of the people we chose to become, not to become.
We became.
Yeah, the people we became. But I am proud of that, and I'm not. There's something that clicked over in me one day. It was pretty recent. I'd been telling my story like over and over again, and it got like more and more succinct. And I was using it the way I wanted to, right? Like maybe it wasn't the wisest. I don't care. But it's mine.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to choose to make mistakes with it. I'm really, really grateful for ways that people have helped me think through whether I want to do this right now, or, are you in a place to share this? Like I like protective, kind people, who love me. So I'm not encouraging people to just run around with their stories. They're real, real deep, hard things to consider. And my stories, every story is really different. Everybody's dead in my story. So no one's ever come at me for defamation. They're dead. They died. And that's a trauma all its own. But
yeah.
But it is mine.
Yeah.
And there's something about owning those things that has been really incredible and empowering to just be like, make what you want of me. But it's not going to be fun for you either to figure out how to, if I have to figure out how to grapple with this, then I'm going to let you be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I really loved Beck's story. She was just fully present, fully herself, fully owned all of the pain, all of the mess of it that would have been shaming. I mean, she let you know what the fuck happened and how she got there and what it was like and the shame that they put on her and laid it out. And then she just stood in it and let you be uncomfortable. And then what she needed to say to Ellen. And that was incredibly powerful. That is so much more powerful than any of the other shit that any other leader has stood up and done. She named everything.
Yeah. There was so much power in that. And I really appreciate, like, oh my gosh, just how raw it was. There was no sugarcoating, right? There was no holding back. There was no politicizing of anything, in terms of like, how can we say this the right way, No. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Let's take the middle road here. And I just, that's what she did. That's really what needs to be happening with these conversations of like, no, we need to call it for what it is.
I want more. How fucking dare you?
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah. And also, when you're telling your story, you get to tell it the way you want to tell it.
Yes, you do.
Absolutely.
And you get to decide what was the most harmful part of your story. You get to decide, was it an act? Was it the way people responded? Like, because it's your story. And I love that she was like, this is my story. And this is what I'm bringing to the table. And also when I think back to the amount of times that I have confronted certain times people who have mistreated me. I was chatting with someone about this today and how so much, you need to take your 5%. You need to take your responsibility for that one time you said something slightly out of turn and it hurt my feelings. And so now you have to take, and then you end up taking all the responsibility for the abuser. And what I love about her story is she does not take any responsibility for something that was not her responsibility. She doesn't take on an abuser's shame. And I really, I really like that she highlighted that at the time she was feeling his shame and hers. And it's so amazing to see she's at a place now where she's like, this is not my shame.
That's
so powerful.
Oh my gosh, like you can just see the amount of work that she has done for herself in terms of healing and the place that she is in now to be able to write this. Oh my gosh, like that is such an incredible like testament to the work that she's done. And like even for myself, like I would like to say I've put in a lot of work, but I don't even know if I could full on like throw it down like that.
I think someone said this during the Brown thing. It was a friend of one of the victims. To share your story that way, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, victims, they just don't want to heal. No. To share your story and name it for what it was, that takes a profound amount of healing. That takes because you have to be so grounded. You have to be so, when survivors start to speak, they're speaking out of pain. Fuck yeah, it hurts. Like, no shit.
Like a victim is so terrible for being angry.
Right. Anger is not a sign of brokenness. It is a sign of that you are healing.
On the platform is allowed to get angry because someone didn't do that or didn't do this or made them look bad. It's anger's only appropriate for men.
It's a masculine feeling.
Yeah.
I think we need more angry women.
Yeah.
I think angry women change the world.
And what you're saying before, with like the labels, like obviously I'm divorced. And even that in and of itself is still like, I don't feel divorced. I kind of don't feel like I was ever married now. Like I've kind of got to that point. So I'm like, that was a strange thing a long time ago. I just like to say I'm single because I'm like, I'm not going to define myself by the fact I divorced someone. Like, how is that the definition of my life now?
I love it. Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not the definition of my life. I'm super proud of myself for standing up for myself and getting out. Like, I'm amazingly proud of the fact I got divorced, actually. But I'm also not going to define myself by that.
Yeah.
Because,
as a kid who is very...
we don't define ourselves by our status according to men.
To men! To our proximity, our status past or present. And Wendy, just as a kid who is so proud of her mom for divorcing, I just want to say it is so amazing to hear you say that. Because I am so thankful to my mother for divorcing. I'm so thankful. And so proud. It gave me worth,
Yeah.
Thank you. So not to just randomly tell you random things. I'm gonna drop the invite link. If you guys want to jump on with us, we haven't even hit the PRT because we are 3 women hitting our fucking stride talking about women and cheering on Bex for being the fucking shit. Sailor Susan is here. She's been here. Susan has no fucks left or filters left. Hi, Mom. It's been a while since I've said hi to my mom, but she absolutely watches these every week. And I love her. All right, so I'm dropping this. Wait, is it international? It's almost International Women's Day.
Tomorrow.
Yay.
Bringing it.
Did you say it's tomorrow?
Is it? I don't know when it is. I just know it's almost. Okay, so I've dropped the link. I think Brave Souls should join us. Where are we? What are we feeling? Please talk, Janelle. What are you saying?
Oh, hey, it is. So here in New Zealand, it is in fact International Women's Day because we're a day.
Okay, March 8th. It's tomorrow. There we go. We are just in sync with the universe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't touched on the PRT. Do we want to jump in there and just start ripping it to shreds? Are we feeling like just
Sure?
Is there anger? Is there grief? I have all the feelings. I can feel, the PRT a work of deep bullshit. Is professional bullshit. It was profound.
Yeah, I'm
institutionalized bullshit.
Institutionalized. I just want to say, can we just talk about informal ministry for a minute?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I just like to talk about how problematic, like
the thing. Like, wow, let's think of a way to make this even more unsafe.
Like,
I know. Informal ministry with absolutely
what the hell is that supposed to mean?
You know what? I'm gonna pull up a story for you guys on Twitter that I read today. I even bookmarked it like an organized little person.
And I was just like, I'm sorry to people that because I just want to acknowledge there's some people that this is like real painful to see this sort of thing written by people who some people had more trust in than others. But it's really hard when there are people that you're kind of hoping that maybe they'll care about our safety to find out they do not care about our safety. And I think for me, that's my biggest beef with a lot of people everywhere is you do not care about keeping us safe. And if you don't care about keeping me safe, then you're not a shepherd, you're not a leader, you're not on anything, and I don't have to listen to you now. That's kind of the thing. If you don't care about keeping me safe, then you don't get to speak into anyone. You're done. For me, I'm an adult. I can decide who I want to listen to.
And just for anyone who's not caught up, so Tikkun commissioned the investigation. There did have to be someone taking on the liability and actually engaging Firefly investigations and commissioning an investigation. So Tikkun is like a brother, sister, buddy ministry, cousin ministry, whatever. I don't really know. But they're like a messianic network of church. Someone's going to correct me, and I'm thrilled. Network of churches, possibly kind of communist, communesque, communist, not communist, but like maybe like a very organized kind of community. Anyway, and so, oh, Nicole, I'm so sorry. Yeah. That is really hard to taking a moment here. So they're related. And one of their founders, Dan Jester, I'm just are really hitting. But Ron Cantor was one of the leaders there. And I got a little, I'll own it. I have a little soft spot-ish. I'm kind of mad at him right at the moment in a mild way, but soft spot for him because he invested in the community. He listened. He would respond to your tweets. You could message the guy. I sent him an email. He made changes based on feedback, and he had limited power. He couldn't change everything, but he seemed to care. He seemed to hear it. He validated a lot. So what they did was they commissioned the report, which didn't go well. And I don't know that they had any influence over that. Jim wouldn't even respond to Ron. Like there were things that I was like, can you get a hold of Jim? And he was like, no, I've got like 3 things. And then on top of that, what they wanted to do was release a pastoral response. So the PRT is the pastoral response team that Dan Jester, one of the founders of Tikkun, writer of Due Process, which I think the subtitle of that is Full Bullshit, but I can't remember. It's hard to remember. So he wrote a book, and it's about church discipline, sort of, kind of. It's about, what do we do when there's stuff that goes down in a church community? How do we process allegations, whatever. And I don't agree with 90% of the book, but he wrote that. And what he wanted to do was, he felt very much that there should be a disciplinary committee made of pastors who could give disciplinary recommendations to the wider body, right? In hopes that, we all knew that IHOP wasn't going to listen, but to model what should be done. So the point wasn't they hoped IHOP would listen, but the real point was, this is how leaders within Christianity should respond. They should take it seriously. They should give pastoral recommendations. Pastors should pastor. And his position is kind of like, people from outside the church shouldn't be speaking into the church, which I think is a little bit arrogant. But it's taken from that verse, which is somewhere about like, why are you going?
It's the First Corinthians, I think.
Yeah, and I'm like
angels and stuff. Yeah.
So whatever, nobody cares. I don't know why they were suing each other either, Apostle Paul, but like maybe they could get their shit together. That doesn't mean that we should just not listen to clergy abuse experts. So that said, they released this statement, and they had made some promises to the community. One promise was it would not be based on Dan Jester's book. They used the phrase due process in it. He selected every pastor on the panel. He led the panel. They promised Ron would be helping because he had community trust. Dan did not. And Ron.
And how many women were on this panel?
0 female pastors. Thank you. All the therapists were women. That was where they put the women in. Were they all therapists? No. One was a retired psychologist whose primary work was in mandalas, like as in the coloring books, correct? Another one was a pastoral counselor, which does not require a degree or any form of certificate. Yeah. These are the so-called psychological experts. And the next one, we got Tiffany. And the next one was who did like a real something. I'm sorry. Alyssa's correcting me. One pastor and his wife. So one of the pastors had a wife involved. So all of these were selected by Dan Jester. They released this, I think it was like 16 pages, maybe, kind of like report responding to the Firefly report. And it had like disciplinary recommendations. And one of those recommendations, I won't go through all of them, but one of them was that Mike was disqualified from formal ministry for life, but he should be allowed back into informal ministry if they wanted to convene a something. Oh man, it'll come to me. It was called the ICP, the something Committee of Presbyters.
Oh my gosh.
And that would be under the PRT, or commissioned by the PRT, so chosen by the PRT, but reporting to the IHOP KC board. So I'm going to put this up real quick.
That's probably the more appropriate title.
Yeah, that's more correct. And so yes, so the same board that has enabled the abuse, that has not allowed an investigation, that has not contains a member, Bishop Wellington Boone, who believes that women should stay with their husbands even if their husbands are physically abusive, to the point that they die. They should submit to the point that they die. Just want to stress that.
Yeah.
And that victims should fucking submit to those people to prescribe therapy and apportion funds for their healing. And then that would be the committee that would also, while reporting to the IHOP-KC board, say, okay, this is actually just the best comment. That those would be the people who would determine whether or not these abusers were fit to return to ministry, including informal ministry, which is exactly how Paul Kane also returned and started grooming people again. So that can be just, they can sit right down. And then, yes, Jen sends them. That was another promise they broke. They promised that they would have Rachel Den Hollander. She was literally hired. Yeah. And they were going to consult her. And that was fought for. That was fought for by the entire community. Because she knows what she's doing. She's a lawyer. She is a survivor. She is very familiar with clergy sexual abuse. She's one of the top lawyers for clergy sexual abuse in the country. She's worked with Guidepost, and yeah, she was supposed to be consulted. And instead of doing any of those things, they broke every single promise to the wider community. And Dan Juster put out his damn report, and it was horrible. And yeah, that's a great question. Does it make it informal grooming? Like, so many questions. So I'm going to stop. Now that we are all, Adam has the best. Adam, we would like to elect you to be part of the pastoral committee. Being the disciplinary recommendations. He's on. All right. Now that I have brought us all to on board with what this was, and it was released on like Monday, maybe. Even the AG was not thrilled. So when we're all in unison not thrilled, it's bad.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's too many acronyms, which is your first sign that there's something wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
Literally boiling the fact that they threw more acronyms in there, which are committees of abusive men. Like,
they love the acronym.
Dagger in gaping wounds. Tone deaf.
Yeah. No, that was.
Yeah. It's the mind does boggle. I think that's because you actually don't know what to say, because it's like, let's think of the worst possible response and do that.
But with acronyms.
But with acronyms, which makes it even.
I think for me it was that no part of it's the pastoral response, and no part of it was pastoral for anyone but abusers. The entire thing.
Yes.
Those were the only people being pastored. And I think
it's
that
almost like those are the only people that actually matter.
It does feel that way.
Can we take a minute and just sit with that for a second, though? Like, how many brave and courageous souls came forward?
Yeah.
Believing and hoping that they were actually going to be cared for the first time, just to have those recommendations put out there on top of errors and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
That is grievous, almost to a point that none of the other things have been so far, at least from my perspective, where, at least when IHOP KC was blaming and shaming and shifting and all, we expected that. Like, we all experienced that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Have this other ministry, and that's, like you said, up for lots of other comment there, but to have this team come forward and make these grandiose promises, just to have them completely betray and abandon what they actually said was going to happen. I think every single one of those victims deserve a personal apology from every single one of the people who
Yeah.
are responsible for that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
anything less than a personal apology is like it. There's just no words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I know there were different levels of trust that people were at in the community. And some of that was based on, how long you had been out. Some of that was based on the relationships that you had. Because you could be out a really long time and still, like, I had a lot of interactions with Samuel. And I'm not singling him out. I'm giving an example. I don't feel like he promised me something or anything like that. And I'm not one of the survivors in the report. But what my point is that depending on your relationships or how long you have been out or what you have and haven't processed, right? How much hope you have available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that varies for people, and that's okay. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with putting your hope somewhere and assessing something and going, you know what, I have some to spare and I'm willing to take that risk. And I know survivors who did it going, I'm aware this could really not be cool. And choosing to do it because they wanted to love a wider community, or they wanted to, in case there were other survivors whose stories needed to be validated. Like
Yeah.
there's survivors whose stories aren't in there who reported. There's 200 interviews. Some people were reporting knowing that they had never reported to, like my story is so small in it, but I reported it knowing that it could validate the grooming aspect for other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
we flooded it because we thought it's happening. This is the thing that is happening. We don't have control over that. But we can control how we respond to it. And what I saw was this massive willingness in the wider community to support the people who said, I'm going to report my abuse. That was that's how I read it.
Yeah.
I'm going to give context. I'm going to corroborate every fucking thing I can.
Yeah.
Because these people need to be fucking believed because they are taking a risk.
Yeah.
And I am
Yeah.
proud
Yeah.
of this community for doing that. And to then have them squander that investment felt like such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like, the wider community carried so many burdens out of care, even in just taking the time to have a 2-hour call with this guy. There were people, Micah, what's his face, was on here, and he had been reporting supporting information and stuff, and he was just weeping a couple weeks ago. And it's even on that level, it was a costly effort. Wait, where it is. I didn't mean to pull up the wrong comment. And to have them not value that, and to value, and here's the path for frickin' Dave Sliker. Like, these men who have not owned a single goddamn thing. Not a single. In fact, when I talked, this is me being a bad person. When I talked to Sliker early on, I asked him to bring the petition to the leadership, not because I thought something would happen, but because I wanted to see what he would do. And I wanted to give him the opportunity to do the right thing and stand with people. All he talked about was his own fucking grief.
Yeah.
I was like, well, welcome. Welcome. We all been here. How do you think victims feel? Get out.
For years. Not even just since October. Like,
no.
Yeah.
And suffering and dealing with the outcome of that institution for literal years.
And, I feel like it's pretty clear that I'm very pro, like, acknowledging you're a victim. And there's also something called facing consequences for all the terrible things you have done, and that you're a victim of your own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you need to face the consequences of your choices, Tracy, Stuart, Dave. And these people are unsafe.
Yeah.
And they were unsafe for such a long time. And it's that difficulty we've gone into before of, sexual abuse is not the only form of abuse that is devastating to one's soul and identity and sense of self. And yeah, the mind boggles even from a theological perspective. Paul the Apostle would not be saying that. Paul the Apostle will be going, expel the immoral brother and stay away from these false teachers.
Where were the Bible verses? In that damn report, there was one. There was one, and it was the Galatians 6:1, and it was restore the brother, like whatever. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, don't pick and choose. He's not our brother. He's not.
No.
He's not a Christian. There's no way
There
you can
it
say
is.
you're a Christian and behave like that.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to pull up this response. The report may have sucked, but I will always be so thankful for the bravery. Yeah, that's exactly right. This recent one triggered a memory for me. It's helpful. I can work through it. Yeah. I will never start fighting for justice. That's the duality. Yeah, that's the harsh duality. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think I want to pull this comment up. So we're almost at the 2-year mark. I don't. 2 years. What? I don't know what I had done in 2 years post IHOP, but it wasn't much. I think I joined a second cult.
Yeah.
Where was everyone on year 2?
Most people did in some way.
Yeah, where were you guys on year 2? Because
or some sort of church, which you're like, was it not?
Yeah.
Borderline.
It was just a mess.
And can we add 2 years? Like, time doesn't actually do much if you don't actually do the work of healing and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just, if you're just waiting.
That's Lower Morning Star. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
There's only 2 paths.
Like Nicole said, decades. It's decades of healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not 2 years or $2,000 of a stipend for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
What we like? No, this is literal lives and children's lives and generations shifted.
Yeah.
Can we call it a stipend, please? The therapy stipend.
Wow.
I needed that. I needed that. Only if you submit to the ICP.
Exactly.
Can I submit to the BYO?
I think that their definition of healing is so interesting, and they call it their prescribed therapy or something like that. And it is I think it's so interesting that it requires submission.
Mm.
And so one of the things in the report that I thought was so striking was that the things that were actually required of abusers, right? It was, 2 years therapy. And that was really it. Oh, and a public apology. And if you think through what had to happen even for the report to exist, it
Yep.
was victims going public with their stories. So public confession of your deepest trauma. Okay. So we got public confession, years of therapy, and a complete loss of your entire community.
Mm.
Yeah.
There is no price that they put, the discipline that they prescribed did not even meet the baseline for what victims had to do, even for this to happen, even to survive, even to exist.
Yeah.
It did not, like, the bar for victims was up here to even get investigated, to be believed, and the bar for abusers didn't even meet that bar to be restored to the pulpit. And that is such an egregious, like, it's a fucking slap in the face. Like, that's wrong. Like, that is wrong. And to not call it wrong immediately, loudly, just to not call it abuse, because that is what that is. That is abusive.
Yeah.
It is minimizing. It is asking survivors to submit instead of empowering them, when submission is what caused them trauma beyond their abuse.
Yep.
Absolutely, wildly, massively inappropriate. It shows that they did no work. They did no listening.
Did they even read the report?
I mean, I guess.
Like honestly, we're talking about someone who has done things that meant that in a different age, in a different time, they would be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's informal ministry.
I'm going to go into informal ministry right now.
It's really lucrative.
Burn some shit down. Yeah. Informal ministry is quite lucrative. Yeah. Get yourself a podcast and you can really go far. So much there. So much there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen.
Well,
You got Jen's comment up there. The five
finger informal ministry. Underrated comment. Oh, I think we need like an ad for like a set of brass knuckles called informal ministry. I can't. Oh, yeah, right here.
Yeah.
It costs. I want to just pull this up. It costs a lot more to even be able to work through panic attacks to talk to an investigator. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cost of reporting was higher than the cost that
of perpetrating.
Yeah. No. And that I think that is a big part of the problem, is that the men on these panels, no shade to the token women. Actually, I'm just kidding. Stop enabling these men. A lot of shade for you. Get out from under and find your voice. But the men on these panels haven't reckoned with the cost.
Mm.
And so they have no place speaking to discipline or healing
Mm.
at all. And that's why grace, that's why guideposts, they actually have survivors, because I looked this up when I was writing my like response to it. Survivors are given a voice in the process in terms of what would it look like for there to be some sort of like what's the R word I'm looking for, Janelle? Not repentance, not restoration, but
Restitution.
What would restitution look like? And victims are given a voice in that. And what would you need to heal? Victims are given a voice in that in other forms of reporting, because that shouldn't be determined by the institution that harmed you.
100%. Nail on the head, Susan.
Yeah. And I wonder, one of my wonderings, what people, my circle like to say, my wonderings, is if some of these men have ever been in a room where they are people who don't have power. No. Have they actually ever been in a situation where their voice is not respected or heard, or possibly a lot of the time the most important voice in the room? I mean, you know, Tiffany, how many hours did we spend listening to the men talk?
Absolutely.
You know, on the night watch, it was like, oh, let's keep listening to the men.
If they never have anything interesting to say, they reframe your points as if it came from them.
Yeah.
All the freaking time.
Yeah. How many of you have made a point and then had a man make the point back to you as if it were his, and you're like, I said that to you. I just told you that. I told you that. And they're like, you know what I think? And then
you know what's even,
and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
What's even better is when you say it to them before the meeting, and then they say it in the meeting. Idea, and you're
this
like,
is not an IHOP alone issue, because even when I went into the corporate space, and there's the emails with all of the people in it, and something that I said in a meeting before now is in the email from the guy, the old white guy above me, and I got to the point with this scenario, or old white woman who basically, anyway. I just got to the point in the corporate scenario where I just responded and said, hey, thank you so much for validating the point I shared with you prior to this email.
Yes.
Elaborate on a few points so everybody could see the full perspective here.
Yeah.
Because that is right. And there's recourse for that in corporate, right? There's nothing like that in formal or informal ministry. I don't care what language you're slacking on this bullshit, but it's misogyny through and through, and there's no other way to cut it. And so
if you do that in these settings, then you have pride. It's normally you have pride, because you want acknowledgement for what came out from your head.
How dare you not be nameless and faceless?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nameless and faceless is, I know. Is it possible to be more nameless? I think women had to be nameless, faceless, and voiceless.
I've had my name changed multiple times based on which man I was attached to. You know, there was my birth father, and then there was my father, and now there's my husband. My name apparently doesn't fucking matter at all. So I have no issues being nameless. You know, like, it's fine. It's interchangeable. So I think it's just pre 2008 Susan was Facebookless. I just don't know.
It's just insanely disappointing.
Yeah.
It really solidifies all of the lessons that I don't know about everybody's story and experience at IHOP was very different, but I think there were some general things I'm just going to speak to women because it looks like a majority of women in the token Adam. Hi, Adam. We all experienced there that women don't matter, that our voices are always secondary and less than a male counterpart. And that if we have a difference of opinion, where to shove it. Because
Yeah.
if you dare have the courage to speak out, at least in my story, I was blackballed from Night Watch. And I was given the opportunity on days as if it was a reward or a gift of
I
generosity.
did not know this, Tiffany.
Yeah.
What
And
year was that?
2008.
Aw.
And yeah, I've switched to 6 a.m.s. And the man in which I tried to expose was then affirmed, and Stuart officiated his wedding not 4 months after. So even if you dared, because women, we are bold and we are courageous, I think, through and through. It's how we have survived literally on this earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear again how boldness is a male trait, because these men are fucking cowards.
Yeah.
They're cowards. They
And
cannot
almost always
stand up to a
violent.
single friend of theirs.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these things that we learned in our stories and our time there just got re-poked with this report.
Mhm.
It's all of it. It's you actually don't matter, but these men do. Restoration is literally
Yeah.
the cost of all these bodies on the ground.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
When will it
Yes.
stop?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still mainly male voices talking about this, still failing
With
to
their
acknowledge
podcasts, doing the podcast tour.
things.
Yeah.
And they're taking lives. Sorry.
Yeah. It is infuriating and it's wrong.
Mhm.
And most of us don't have the energy.
Oh,
No,
'cause
but I
a
will
lot
say
of
this.
the mom
We
kind of
all try to
survived.
live our lives and do all the things that feels a bit like the Barbie movie, when she does that monologue.
Yeah.
It's like,
But I think it's so interesting because the men are doing their podcasts and they're doing their statements and they're doing their counsels. And what I've seen over and over
Yes,
is
they are.
women showing up and extending. Janelle and I were talking about this. But when I look at RFI, when I look at open spaces, I love you, Brantley. But this is not, so I'm not negating the men who have shown up, but I have seen women extend nurturing, extend healing, extend stability. I've seen women validate. It is the women who had to name the abuse. It's been the women who have had to push back against the men. It's been the women who have shown boldness online. I see so many more women. And I think I'm going to pull up Tiffany's comment because fuck yeah. Other people's trauma should never be a way to re-platform a man to a place of influence. Thank you. Yes. I just think women have done the caretaking.
Yeah.
Women have done the caretaking. Women have done the naming of the abuse, the naming of the dysfunction. They have called the men to account, and they're still not given a seat at the table. And it's so fucking messed up. And and this is great. I'm mad that it's the women, but damn, has it been empowering? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the men are not going to solve this. They're the fucking problem. And if they could have solved it, they would have solved it already. They've had thousands of years to figure out what to do about abuse in the church, and they've done nothing. Nothing. So maybe it's time to sit down, because do you know what women do? Women have done the birthing. Women have done the bandaging of wounds. Women have done the fucking laundry. We have cleaned up the messes. We have fed you. We have cared for you. All of the nurturing, everything that keeps human life going, the women have fucking been doing it, while the men have formed councils about how to do it. You have councils and you have education. You go to seminary and you can't figure out how to love the person next to you, how to care for them when they're wounded, and how to just fucking sit next to them when they are sobbing so hard they're snotting.
Yeah.
You don't know how
Yeah.
to calm them the fuck down. You have no fucking idea. Sorry, there's so many F-bombs in this. You have no idea what to do when a woman is having a panic attack because her abuse is in her face and her abuser is on the internet pretending to be a good person. You have no fucking idea. Not a single fucking person has come to you with their abuse because you aren't safe. You don't know how to be safe. You will never know how to be safe until you actually sit down with the wounded and actually are wounded yourself. And you've never been vulnerable enough to been wounded.
Yeah.
And we have been wounded our entire fucking lives.
Yeah.
And you know what? Women have been the ones who have done the work of healing.
Yeah.
And it's time to actually let them.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about that.
Yep.
It's like, I feel like the only proper response for men in the face of women bravely sharing their abuse is to be still and silent, and
That
to hold a safe space for her breaking and rebirth. He doesn't have to contribute other than safety and silence and being a wall to defend all of the accusers. Like, it's Jesus on the ground with the woman caught in adultery. Never mind the man, but it's looking around and looking and validating her existence as going, I see you.
Yeah.
You're not alone in the shame. And I will make sure that no man can ever condemn you again.
Yeah.
Simply by my presence. Here's the line in the sand here and no further.
That's it.
The answer for men in the face of women's abuse is silence and safety. And anything other than that is perpetuating that trauma.
Yeah.
We don't need men to fix the problem.
We actually just need them to stop.
Exactly.
Like that's the problem. Stop abusing women and start listening to them. Like it's, you know, we're not asking for things beyond the realm of possibility. It's like, don't lie. Listen to women and believe them.
Yeah.
If someone does an action that means they're unsafe, stop listening to them, platforming them. If someone says something that empowers abusers, shut them down. It's not, we're not asking you to like change everything about your lives. Just be a decent, I feel like being a decent human being and have a bit of common sense. Just have some common sense. Common sense says if someone over the course of their leadership has patterns of abuse, the pattern's not going to magically stop.
Exactly.
Because they said, oh, I'm sorry once. Like that's nice thinking, but it's not reality.
Is not repentance.
No.
Apology, confession is not repentance. Apology is not repentance.
All things what they are. If someone has changed
not repentance. None of those are repentance.
No,
and if they would like to see a biblical response to abuse, I will tell you exactly what it is as the agnostic who desperately wishes she could be Christian that I am. All right. It is to lay down your power. So God's response, you want to own God as a male? Fine, let's do it. We'll put aside gender studies for a minute. We'll put aside all of it for you so that you can hear this. If the big man of the universe, his response to the abuse being perpetuated against the human race was to lay down all of his power, every fucking bit of it, and make himself completely vulnerable, because the only way, I'm going to throw a verse at you. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. A woman shall encircle a man. A woman will encompass a man. Why? Because that is the only way that a traumatized world can experience safety, is if I am bigger than you.
Yeah.
And so if you aren't able to make yourself small enough to give me back my power, then you are not safe.
Yeah.
And that is the problem of men. So if you want to be a godly man, lay down your power.
Yeah.
Lay it
Yeah.
down and make someone else powerful. You give it away, because that is what Jesus did. He became a baby, and at any moment, he became the safest thing that you could be.
Yeah.
He became the most vulnerable he could be. And men, you have got to learn to be vulnerable. You have got to learn to put yourself in a place where someone could hurt you. Because I have lived my entire life
There.
being someone who could be hurt. Every moment of my life has been someone. I am never not afraid I am going to be hurt. I have never in my life not been afraid that I could be hurt. I remember the first time I explained this to my husband, I had a panic attack because there was someone outside the house and he couldn't understand. This is when we were really young. I'm not trashing him, but also he's fine. He's a big he was a shit for a while. No, I'm just kidding. We were 19 and 20 when we got married. There was a lot we didn't know. I expected things from him that were not fair. He expected things from me that were not fair. We came from IHOP. All right. But he didn't understand. He said, "Why are you anxious all the time?" And I lost it. And I was like, because every goddamn night I wake up and wonder, did I fucking lock the door when you're gone? Every time I walk through the dark, I am afraid. I've spent every minute of my life afraid of every fucking night. I've never been alone with a man and not afraid. When have you been afraid? When have you ever been afraid? You have never, ever been afraid. You have never felt out of control. And the one time in your life that maybe you did, you experienced like a minute of it. Because you have no idea what it's like for that to compound and compound and compound. And then to have children who are girls and then be afraid again and again and again. Are they safe at school? Is the crossing guard safe? Is the sleepover safe? I am never safe, and I've never been safe, and you are why I am not. And then you tell me that I have anxiety and that I'm hysterical. No, you go and you learn how to be safe, and you learn it by being vulnerable, because you'll know what hurts and what doesn't. And that's the difference between me and every man out there is I know what hurts and what doesn't. And that is what makes me safe.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm done with their pulpits and their platforms.
Yeah.
I had a lot of yelling I needed to do.
Well, and if I could just, I feel like there's really nothing one could add to that. But while, yes, David was a man after God's own heart, he also completely screwed up his family and spent the rest of his life facing massive consequences for raping Bathsheba. Like, why do people use David as an example of someone who sinned and then just got to sail through without ramifications?
And then he failed to stop his son's abuse.
So many ramifications, so much dysfunction in his family. Is that how much dysfunction you want in your family?
Yeah, you find me a woman in the Bible who enabled a rapist.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Find me one. Because who was it? Damn it. Was it which of the 12 sons? Judah. God, it's been a long time. Come on. The one Yeah. I mean, like literally, you don't go a generation without somebody raping someone. But none of these women ever managed short. Like, never is happening. Yeah. But these are the heroes of our faith. You're looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, who bandaged Jesus' body? It was women. Who birthed Jesus? It was a woman.
Who announced his resurrection?
Thank you, Jen. It was Reuben. Thank you. Yes. I'm just, the reason the church is so dysfunctional is because life and healing and birth and death, women tend the bodies. That is what women do. Women tend the bodies. And there hasn't been a place for women because we've institutionalized the church to keep women out. We've institutionalized society to keep women out.
Yeah.
I am talking from doctors to lawyers to everything is designed to keep women out and say, why? Because women, frankly, I don't know a man in my life who isn't intimidated by the intellectual and emotional maturity of the women around them, because they don't have that same relational rigor in their life. They are not constantly having to navigate these problems, solve these problems, and heal these hurts. I mean, you're all mothers, most of you. And if you're not, your spouses, or have been lovers, or you have been something, you are friends. And I know you are the ones who are doing the work to put those relationships back together when they're broken. And I see the women in this community trying to protect each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the women who message me. You know, when someone says something shitty, or who step in, or who babysit the chats when an abuse story comes out, and you don't even have to ask because they're there. They're just present. But I just want
To your
to
point of women tend to the bodies.
Mm.
And I think, could it be that it's not that the outcome of, how do I phrase this? Susan, you had said that the church has institutionalized, women out of the church. And I actually kind of wonder if that's the result of the church not being the place for the wounded to come, period. Because where the wounded are, women show up. Where the love is in the lowly places.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I really think it probably first started when the weak and the broken, the gospel wasn't for them anymore, because power and influence and the Catholic Church and so many things took over. I think as women, by default, we were the outflow of that, because we will follow the broken. We will follow those who need tended to. And when the church chose influence, and when the church historically chose power and position in nations and governments, I think by default, us women were also kicked out, because we will always go to the bodies. It's like this thing that is such an incredible act of resilience and bravery and courage through the ages, that we are the ones who find the broken and heal over and over and over again, to your point. But I think it first started with the church not being a safe place for the broken. And thus, us women didn't have a place.
Yeah.
And as much as our strength and our anger is righteous and should take up space in church, I don't want to negate the beauty of us as women in the lowly places with the bodies either. So as we want that voice in the church, I don't want us to forget the power of tending to the broken. Just like what you said, Susan, the sharing your abuse story in a chat and having somebody show up without being asked. Thank you for that, Susan. You are one of those people constantly. And that's powerful. I feel like that is more powerful than any podcast or pulpit. It just doesn't get the praise of men.
Yeah.
But us, do we need the praise of men, women? Like, at the same like, we still gonna do the shit. We still doing it. Because it's who we are.
Yeah.
And so I don't, in our anger, I want us to remember the beauty of that reality too.
So good.
I think there is a piece of me that sees. All right, guys, I'm gonna get Christian on you.
We can take it.
We're gonna reclaim a minute. When I look at the Jesus of the Bible and what he chose to do. Because he didn't validate the institution. He didn't align with it. He didn't even stay inside of it. And then he elevated women.
Yeah.
But what he did over and over was validate the work of women. He fed people rather than armed them. He healed people. Everything that Jesus actually embodied was the work of women. And when I look at that is a picture of what I feel like the church should have been, is those with power laying it down, giving it away, and entering the lowly places, men doing the work that women have given, honoring the work that women have given themselves to years, and humbling themselves to learn from those women. And for me, there's been, I think last Easter was the first time. It's where that language of the women tend the bodies came from, where I just recognized it. I saw a picture, and it was Mary holding Jesus' body, and I thought, fuck. And all these women were out, right? I was watching my friends love people and care for people and set up what they could for people, right? And I thought, it's the women. It's the women who are tending the bodies. Because I had so much grief over the lack of pastoral response. And I tried to take it to the AG. I tried to tell them, I was like, that's not what's, they need someone present. They need presence. And yeah, Adam, I think you're right. I think that is the reason Jesus appeared to women first. I think he was honoring the work of women. And I think he was validating it and mirroring it. Whoever he was, whatever he was, I think he was validating that work of tending to the bodies and birthing them and burying them and everything in between. Because it's the women who raise people to maturity. And I see that even now. I see the women pastoring these men and helping them step into maturity, helping them to grow. And that's thankless work. All of it is, I see the hand holding. I see all of it, being a container for people's emotions. And I just, you're right. I won't stop doing it. Tiffany, I won't. I don't think any of us are going to stop doing it because it's not being done to get anything. It's being done out of love.
Yeah.
It's love. That's just what love does.
Yeah.
It's present and it pulls you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I didn't even know, but it is right here.
It would just be really nice if some people could make sure we can stay safe while we're trying to take care of people.
Yeah.
It would be really nice for women to be able to go to church if they want to go to church and know that they're safe and their kids are safe. And I don't think that is an unreasonable expectation. And I think the reason why a lot of us have the anger is because it's informing us something is wrong. And the something that is wrong is it's 2025 and women and men and children are not safe. And okay, so my little thing has been, for me personally, God As I view God as safe. God is the safest being for me to be exactly who I am at any point in time, and God is safe for me. I can be any emotion, I can feel anything, I can say anything, and I am safe. And to me, the place where God's people meet, if it's reflecting God, should be the safest place on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Because God is safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing that broke in me was that getting hit with that realization of like, this was supposed to be a sacred, safe place.
Yeah.
And realizing that it was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And also realizing that it's not a singular event. It's not isolated. It's widespread and systemic. And as people are gaining more courage to, speak up and say something, it's so heartbreaking to see how widespread it is. And it's really caused me to, that was the singular thing that really shook my faith. And it especially with my own abuse story was strongly tied to prayer. And so after that, like, prayer was really tainted for me. And I could never bring myself to pray again because it felt so dirty after that.
Yeah.
And so after coming to that realization and working through it for years, just finally coming to a place of working through the muck of the trauma and PTSD. And, there were a couple of years after COVID happened. I feel like the pandemic really brought all of my trauma up to the surface. and so it's just this like magnification of nothing is safe and no one is safe. And I couldn't even be in an elevator alone with a man without having all of my senses heightened and just really anxious and hypervigilant of like, I don't know if I can make it in this space. So that was the part for me that I was just, the grief was so strong in the sense of like, I don't know if I can ever enter a space in the church and feel safe again.
Yeah.
And feel that, that sense of sacredness, because of the experience that I had within the church, and not just one church, but so many of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been to a lot of churches, guys. Yeah.
Vanessa, thank you for jumping on with us.
Yeah.
I don't know any of you guys except for Tiffany.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh my goodness, it's so good to see your face.
No, I love you. Hi.
Oh, Vanessa lived with me for a while, or I lived with whatever. I've not seen you in a decade.
I know. Really long time. Love to see your face.
So much love.
And apologies in advance because my cat is a nuisance.
Oh, never apologize for cats.
We love to see it.
We love the cat.
Yeah.
I don't mean to get off track of what you're talking about right this minute, but something that you guys were talking about before about this, like, silence from, well, specifically men, but I was thinking about too, just as far as the leadership at IHOP and the people who have stood up to be, the advocates. I just was thinking, gosh, there's no point where I feel like we have received silence from that group. And as much as it was important, very important, I think, that they stood up and spoke and called attention to what was going on and said, this is wrong and this has to stop. I do think also there's a time where silence is critical from them, where they, recuse themselves from ministry, which I don't know that, I haven't seen. And maybe it's happened and I missed it with certain members of, like, the AG, but I don't know that that's the case. And, I've seen podcasts and YouTube channels and classes on Bible teachings, but I haven't seen a point where they have said, you know what, it's like in Timothy, and I'm really not at a place where I'm reading the Bible or going to church at all anymore, but
Girl, same.
but like in Timothy, it talks about someone who, like, was disqualified from ministry for a time because he needed to get his house in order.
Yes.
And it wasn't permanent, which absolutely should be for, the perpetrators, but it was still like, hey, you need to straighten yourself and your house out.
Yeah.
And you need to step down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know that I have seen evidence that people have straightened themselves in their houses out. Like, I appreciate that members of the AG are in therapy and working on stuff, but, like, I think that's a time to say, hey, you know what, while I'm doing this, while I'm making damn sure that this never happens again, like, and I believe apologies are genuine, like the apologies that we've seen. And as much as I respect and totally stand with Bex, like, I also do believe, like, I think Sarah Markman said, like, she believes that Alan's apology was genuine and sincere. And I love the Hood family. I have a long history of knowing them, teaching their kids, like, but at the same time, like, I haven't seen silence. And I do think there's a time for that. Like, I do think it's appropriate to, and I was thinking about, gosh, what would the other side of that coin be? And it's like, well, I get that people need to take care of their families and they need to provide. And this is the way that they do that, is being in ministry is their career. And it's how they continue to provide for families that they have that need to survive. But you know what, like, how many of us
Exactly.
I had to completely change everything about we provided for ourselves and our families, had to completely throw down everything that we gave ourselves to for, a decade, 5 years, however long it was, like, and completely change our approach to how we provide for ourselves and how we living in work, and like, I've had to do that. When you guys were talking about, like, what did you spend the first 2 years after you left doing? Going back to college when I should have done when I was 19 years old.
Yes. Good for you. Yes.
Yeah.
Trying to survive through that, and, like, I just, sorry, I'm so emotional.
No, we don't.
You are bringing it.
This is real.
And it's not like, I'm not after, like, self-flagellation or, criminal, not criminalizing, but like beating down the people in the AG. Like, I really do think they're sincere and they have done what they can to from where they learned about this to actually see things change. But like, I do think that there's a place for like it's appropriate for
Yes.
time and reflection,
Yes.
and to say, I have spent this amount of time totally stopping the thing that led me to buy into all this shit and to be complicit, and made absolutely sure it would never happen again in my life before I got into that role again.
Yeah. I love that you use the word recuse.
Yes.
Because I think that's an excellent word to use for what you're talking about, because it's that acknowledgement of, I'm too close, this is too personal. I need to now remove myself from the situation because I'm personally involved. And that's true. All these AG people, they were far too close to Mike and far too close to the system to really be able to say or do anything meaningful for the victims.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, the appropriate action would be speak out, get the victim's voice out, expose Mike, recuse yourself, tell people why you're recusing yourself. So there's not silence as silence agreement with whatever. And then, as you say, go and get a job. As you were thinking, this is a bit of a single mum shout out, but a lot of us, when we find ourselves divorced, have to do a whole lot of things to try and still take care of our families and let go of careers, change careers. And a lot of people here, as you said, didn't get to go to university. We've all had to do that work.
Yes.
Do it.
And there's humility. It is a position of humility. It is like speaking as a child of a single mother. What I saw my mother do was look at the situation, and she was way too hard on herself, I just want to say. Because she was a victim too. But I saw her look at what it cost, both her and me, because it cost me too, because I was abused. Reckon with her part in it, which I have strong feelings on whether she even had a part. I don't even think it's fair. Because no one was protecting her and no one was protecting us. Right?
Yeah.
And then I saw her go and just go, I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And that meant humiliation. That meant loss of community. That meant taking a job that was shit. That meant going to a hospital. So she's a nurse. So she did have that profession, which not everyone even has, right? And saying, hey, I think that I can work in chemical dependency because I joined a support group, and my ex-husband was an alcoholic. And so I know the program and I know the cost, and I can run this. And that's fucking vulnerable. Like, that is baller. That is the shit. Because you have to own what you went through, right? And I want to see, like, if you want to talk about repentance, if you want to talk about the cost, if you want to talk about dignifying the cost that other people have had to pay, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
It looks like letting yourself take a hit and another hit, and then not making yourself a victim in it.
Yeah.
It's the not making yourself a victim. It's going, no, this is just right.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, to Vanessa's point, like, deplatforming yourself, if you are in a vocation that has influence in this way at all. The only righteous thing to do is to deplatform yourself, shut down your ministry. And I don't know, I think all of us women could give them a good comprehensive list of mundane, mediocre ways to make ends meet. I mean,
you can clean some houses, you can babysit, you can work at Target,
you can donate plasma on,
you can get
working on your laptop to get Christmas presents for your babies. You can go to food banks to feed your family. There are so many things that we have communitively all done in the low places, in the places of humility, that all we are asking is to be met there.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, so that an empathetic witness be the basis for safety from these. And yeah, it's giving your power away, to Susan's point. It's what Jesus did. It's giving your power away.
I think when I look at, when we talk about, if we want to talk about the kingdom of heaven, if we want to talk about the kingdom of God, hold on, this is a great comment right here.
Yeah, I know, I just can't help myself.
I can't, like, get on that essential. I can't.
Join my line.
I want you guys selling essential oils. I want you, go breed some puppies.
You can work from home.
You can work from home. I want you, go sell some insurance. I'm in their DMs like, hey, girl. I want to see men selling leggings. I think I'm giving inner healing right now.
You guys need so many MLMs, the like.
Yeah, there are so many options for you right now.
So many.
And you know what? No, but I think. Wait, there was a point someone made. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. While I'm Bibling, because I guess that's a thing I'm going to do. While I'm Bibling and Christianing, I think there's a reason that Jesus told the rich young ruler to give all he had away to the poor.
Yes.
And I think it's solidarity. I'm going to be really honest. You don't have a fucking ounce of solidarity. You don't have anything in my book unless you've suffered what I've suffered. And the reason that women do so much of the work of healing is because we've suffered so much of the harm. The reason that women are able to be a safe place for victims is that women have been victimized. And so the whole, we have a great high priest who, empathizes, I don't know what the verse is, with our weakness.
With our weakness.
Yeah. Someone is more Bible than me and can tell me. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm so sorry for that. I'm so sorry. I should have given a trigger warning.
But I can't stop the song once it starts.
Yep. And I'm thirsty. It's just like a thirst trap of a song. Like, I don't know what's happening with it. Missy was thirst trapping before thirst trapping was happening. Like, I don't even know. There's so much there. I'm gonna stop. I'm really sorry. I will donate $1 to everyone's therapy tomorrow. Yeah, but is there a woman out there who hasn't been sexually harassed? And no, the answer is no. Not a thirst trap tune. I'm just saying. But I think there's a reason that he told the rich young ruler to give away all his money, because he's like, you can do all this. You can do all the things. You can keep all the laws. You can be the bestest best boy, with all the treats and the good boy. You can be golden retriever boy. And until you make yourself as vulnerable as the people you are trying to serve, you will not be able to administer any kind of healing, because there's no solidarity.
Yeah.
There, you know, you
Yeah.
it just feels like the people who have brought healing into my life are the people who have carried really profound burdens
Yeah.
and extended the love they should have had to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they did that at cost. It
Yeah.
cost them to extend that. It cost them a lot to extend that because they didn't have fucking anything left. And it meant I knew what it cost them when they were extending it. And until someone else's healing costs you, I don't know that you have healing to extend.
Yeah.
You're definitely not a safe place.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. You're not a safe place unless it costs you.
Absolutely.
And I think kind of circling around a bit to even maybe what we were talking about in the beginning, that a lot of these kind of AG members or people that we're talking about, or the people that called men, but especially women, to our purity and giving it all to Jesus, and Jesus alone can satisfy you. And if you feel dissatisfied, that's your fault because you're not satisfied enough in Jesus. And just continue to reflect on how terrible you are and how you're failing as a Christian because you're not completely satisfied
Because
in
you have
Jesus.
fucking standards, right? Like, let's call it what it is. You're dissatisfied because you have standards. You're single because you have standards.
Yeah. And the irony is all the mainly men calling us to lay down everything had all the things.
Yeah.
You were married and you had a family and you had a house and you had a nice place to go on holiday and your family was around you and all with you, and you're telling us to give up even more that we've already given up so we can love Jesus more perfectly. But you're allowed to love Jesus with your family and your friends and actual community. And you're telling me I need to give even more money after the awful American exchange rate to do this, that, and everything else.
Yeah.
And so when we come around to, okay, I'm going to be a bit salty now. They make their livelihood through ministry, then find another livelihood because you can be satisfied in Jesus just like I had to be.
Yes. Yep.
And God will provide for you just like God provided for me.
Yeah, I remember an absolute.
Lay it down. Lay it all down.
No, I remember having a moment where someone gave a shit sermon like that. Of the Lord did this and that and on the other and whatever the hell, and provided, and now we have a multi-million-dollar business, right? And I went home and I was so enraged. And it's this like really visceral memory of like looking out the window. We had this shitty park across the street. And I was like, is this the kingdom of God? Do you provide for people who have connections, or do you provide for me? Because I don't see it. Is the provision of God just networking? Is the provision of God just power dynamics? Is the provision of God just, business sense? Is it popularity? Is it for the privileged? Is that what your kingdom is? Because if that's what it is, I don't want it. I don't even not just want it for me. I don't want it because the people I love are those people. And I'm not going to leave them, And I think the only thing that's been healing for me is to start to see Jesus as a person who chose solidarity with the oppressed and the vulnerable and the weak and the broken and the rejected, the diseased, the unfixable. And it's weird because in all of this, there's this like, let's get an investigation. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do whatever the hell, Wendy, we love you. Thank you for coming so much. She had to jump off because she has an actual real life friendship somewhere that she's going to go and hang out with. But I think I lost my train of thought, but I think that what has been redeeming for me is to go, there's this like, let's hold people accountable. What's the goal? It's accountability. What's the goal? It's exposure. What's the goal? It's reform. No, I don't think so. That's not the goal for me. The goal for me is just to be present.
Mm-hmm.
The goal for me is just to bear witness. It's to find the person next to me who's grieving and grieve with them and tell them they should have been treated differently. Not how it should have gone. You have value. Your story broke me. Like that's my goal. And I don't know if there needs to be another one, because that just feels like living, right? Yeah. Like I don't want to build anything. I don't need to reform anything, because they can like I get it now. I get why Jesus was like, let the dead bury their own dead. I don't even know if he was like the son. I don't care if he was a deity. I get the grief of the man who was like, because like Jesus, his mom was a single mom. Like, I don't give it, like, whatever. Sure, Joseph was around, but like, I had a second dad. I had an adoptive dad. The shame was still there. The pastor's kid was like, I heard your dad was like a thief. My mom said you have father issue. You know what I mean? Like, like the shame hangs over you if you have trauma, if you have whatever, if you don't have money, if you don't have whatever, if you don't have power.
Mm-hmm.
And power can be social equity. Power can be so many things. And like, I just, for me, it's just, the point is embodying love in some way that makes like, that's what makes meaning, right? Like, that's the only thing that has meaning, to be honest.
And I feel like that's the only response we can have in light of this report.
Yeah.
Is to just keep doing the right thing that we've been doing all along, because any recourse from any person of influence or power or ministry or man will always fail. Yeah. And it cannot ever define, their lack of integrity cannot define ours. We have to just keep doing what we're doing and loving as we have the ability to love. Because it, like you said, is just living. It's just doing the damn thing. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge that would be nice to be protected. It would be nice to have a righteous response to egregious abuse. But at the end of the day, it'll always fail. We just have to keep doing the right thing. because what else is there to do?
That feels good.
It's our power, it's our choice in the midst of something that feels so disempowering and so easily victimized. We have to realize that our power and our choice is our own and our response is our own now. And what we do with this life that we've been given is up to us. No matter how many dang men try to make us fall and bruise us and make us bleed, we get to get back up and do the right thing, because my integrity matters, my personhood matters, my voice, my face, children matter. And so we just keep doing the damn thing well.
Yeah.
Said every woman throughout history. We're not new. This isn't a new issue. As much as it's new to our existence in this space and time and history, we women persist. We women overcome. We
Yeah.
women keep on keeping on. As it sounds like, y'all, that's what we do. And the world keeps going around because of it. And it's what power do we have to influence love in our place of authority, in our homes, in our friendships, in our families, in our coworker relationships. Because all we can do is that. That's enough, guys. Like, that's enough. You're enough. I'm enough. And we're not too much for being angry at injustice.
Yeah.
But our response is to just to live well. And no matter if you have a God or you're godless, the basic reality is that we're human. Before Judaism, before Christianity, before Islam, before any religion ever existed, from my perspective, was Adam and Eve. They were human. We're human first and inherently valuable because of that. And it's like going back to that place where we live our lives validating our own human value and the value of those around us.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to go church for a minute if I can.
Do it.
I think that was the intent and purpose and design of the Apostolic Church, was to just love the broken, to make disciples, meaning to love lowly people as your foot crossed their path, literally.
Yeah.
So whether you're doing that in the name of Jesus or in the name of your own integrity, I think that love is ultimately, like, what else can we do?
Yeah.
You know? We can't let our history rob us of our future or rob our children of their future, because the damage already has had such consequence. And it really is up to us to keep moving forward with grace, with love, with safety, with assurance for those that we actually get to love. I think that is something that I have had to reprogram coming out of IHOP and coming out of broader evangelicalism as a PK, is that love felt like an obligation, because that's how the church teaches it.
Yeah.
You should love others. And I'm really damn proud of myself that I've gotten to the point, despite it all, where love is still a gift that I choose to give.
Yeah.
I get to love others. I get to advocate for women in the place of birth and postpartum. I get to set an example for my children of what it looks like to stand up and value and say, enough's enough. My life matters. I'm leaving. I get to be that face with an A now that chooses to love.
Yeah.
And that's enough. Like, I could die happy with that.
That was better than all the Sundays.
I miss you, Tiff.
I miss you too. I just sent a message to your phone, the last number I had. Did you get it?
I can't. I'm on my phone, so I can't text you and stay on here.
I think I needed the women after this week. It was a week of men, and I needed the women.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful that you guys show up the moments that you have with what you have and what you've fought for. I think it feels like such a gift. It just feels like it, in all of it, I think the gentleness is what I needed. But it's fierce too. And it's everything all at once. So that's perfect. I'm just so grateful for the women in this. On that note, I think we will close. But I love you all. And I am so deeply grateful and so proud to know all of you. You guys on screen and some of you guys off screen. All these women here. There's so many women in the chat right now. And you are needed and you are incredible. And you are what makes life go on. So, happy International Women's Day, which I didn't know was coming. But I think apparently we felt it. And the universe aligned.
Yeah.
So, you four stay on. I'm going to end this stream, but I want the moment to upload all of this, if nothing else, just to honor it so that we have it. But also because I fucking want to clip some of our yelling. That's what it was nice. All right. Everyone have a really wonderful week.
You too.
You too.